basically today's topic was becoming a PPI contributor. So this is actually, what do people need to think about when they get starting? What are some of the considerations? And I think it would also be helpful if, for those that have attended regularly, if there's any additional topics that you think we should also include, then that would also be helpful for us to know, because this is the last scheduled one. So also interested in feedback as well during this session. And if people want to, then we can definitely schedule some more starting once again from April, because March will probably be too late to organize something. So there's a whole lot of things that will be going on in this one. So things to just think about in the background as we start to warm up is, any potential new topics we can look at, or whether it's online training that we can deliver through this platform. But primarily it's about questions or thoughts around actually becoming a PPI contributor, for the benefit of those that are new to it, is what are the things they need to think about? What should they do? How can they manage certain aspects of becoming a PPI member for different things? Where's the best place to start? Because committees can sound really scary to a lot of people, but basically, where do we start? And I'm happy to open the floor for the conversation. Yes, Manoj?
Yes, so I would start by giving my insights into some advice I was given. So when I first started off, I applied to sit on a national panel with the NIHR. I got to the last 7 and then I got rejected. They said there was nothing wrong with my application, but what they wanted was greater evidence of involvement at local level first. So when I've advised other colleagues and friends, I've said, build up your PPI work locally first, regionally, and then apply for national roles. So get involved in PPI opportunities with local hospitals, schools, colleges, universities, local government, build up your network and build up your experience first before you apply to national roles. That's just one observation.
Yeah, thank you. And before I come to you, Julie, are there specific websites they can go to, or it's cold calling in a sort of way?
Well, one of the first things I did was, after I got involved with the group that Philip was already a member of, Primary Care Research group at the University of Manchester, I looked at other schools of health, schools of nursing, other regional universities to see whether they had PPI groups. So I then sent my details off, and in some cases the answer was no. In some cases they said we're restricted to local people, etc. But others were more open. So contact local schools, universities, colleges, local government opportunities, PPIG groups, which Rashmi mentioned, which is at doctor surgeries, they have patient groups. So start locally, operate regionally before you go nationally.
Okay, thank you. Julie?
Yes, I've just seen Becky's comment, and that's what I was going to say really, which is think about what you enjoy doing, because there's lots of different types of opportunities in PPI, and you'll know whether you're the sort of person that likes to be on committees or likes to do media work or writing or whatever. I mean, I know I'm not a fundraiser, and I'm not sort of that keen to get involved in sort of big engagement events. And so you've got to know, you've got to sort of find your niche, but you've got to find out what it's all about to identify what niche you're going for. And I think in terms of getting the general picture, going on some cancer research websites and joining up with charities who have newsletters, receive newsletters from the NIHR and the NCRI, National Cancer Research Institute. And that way you'll get a picture of what's going on, and you'll also get lots of things that you could apply to do. And I had exactly the same experience of Philip, of applying for a national committee a little bit too early on and getting to the interview stage and then being told, oh, well, go for the committee stage 1 down. you know, and we'll look at you for that before going on, because it's quite hard to break into when you haven't a lot of experience. So, you know, sometimes doing voluntary things for charities, you know, just so you've got something to actually show that you're really interested, can be very helpful as well before going for the ones where, you know, that there might be an honoraria involved, which will be a bit more competitive. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And that's similar to what Becky's put in the comments about, you know, looking for the local patient involvement groups. Yeah, so locals it's a good place to start. And now I think someone mentioned the GP surgeries, and I think Rashmi, you're part of the PPGs as well. Yeah, they always are very active. I know certainly in my GP surgery, they're very active. So a very good place as well to find out. Rashmi?
Yeah, I think everyone has said absolutely the right thing. Becky, Manoj, Julie, you've all articulated really well. I think, and you know, as Becky said, there are different levels of involvement that you can get involved in. You know, you can get involved in reviewing of the documentation. You can get involved in actually helping the researchers to focus on what areas of research they should do. So there is a whole raft of things you can do. But as Julie articulated, I think the main thing you must ask yourself is, why do you want to get involved? What do you want to achieve yourself? Because until you identify what is going to be the most beneficial to you, I think you will find yourself putting yourself forward to lots of things, but actually not finding yourself very motivated. Now, in my case, I put myself forward because I basically I wasn't getting any help and care, guidance, support, information, which is what I was looking for. And by talking to other patients and other members of the public, I got involved in the PPI work. So my reason for getting involved in the PPI was really only to be able to get into contact with, where can I get information on health and care services? Where can I get access to the people who can give me independent advice where I couldn't get advice from my GPs or social workers? And that was my motive. And that gave me a reason to start. Once you get, as I think, Julie, you mentioned, once you get involved in it, you can get in, you know, you develop a family or you develop a network, and you get sort of requests coming to you. You don't need to go out there. They'll come to you and they'll say, actually, you know, we think you've got so much useful experience, you can help. So I think the first thing I will say is look for why you want to get involved, how can you help, and then try, as everyone has said, the local network, and you can get involved that way.
Yeah, thanks, Rashmi. Some really good points there. Manoj? You're on mute, Manoj.
Yeah, sorry about that. So when you're starting off, when you start initially, it's important to distinguish between one-off opportunities. So end of last year, I went to a palliative care workshop in Leeds, organized by King's College London, but that was just a one-off. You know, you present yourself for 3-4 hours, you might have short documents to read beforehand, you participate in the discussion, and that's it. But then there's short-term commitments where, like recently with the Radford Institute of Health Research on early detection of cancer, it was 3 workshops over a period of about 8 weeks, the last 8 weeks. But otherwise, there could be where you sit on a committee for 2 to 3 hours every month. So depending on where you are in life and your commitments, you choose the more suitable opportunities for yourself, but not overcommit yourself.
Yeah, and that's important as well. Excuse me. So I think it's like, I think those points are in terms of why are you joining it? I think that's actually the key question, and what can you contribute to it? I know some people have come to us before and they've said, well, they've got an interest in training, or they used to be a trainer or an educator in a past life, and they just want to be able to give back. So I think the main thing I want to say is, if whatever is being offered is not rocking your boat, or you're not quite sure about it, and you think you can do something differently, it's always worth approaching the different organizations and asking whether they've got the capacity or if they're interested in doing that. Because you'll be surprised at the amount of things that the formal organizations don't really think about, because I think a lot of the PPI activities tend to be structured around governance committees and things like that. But there are wider opportunities for things like making videos, making animations, anything that you've got a potential skill in. People are definitely interested in that. Before I come to the guys with their hands up, Roland, I know you've been involved with the Innovation Observatory, and it would be interesting to find out sort of what your experience of that is and what you believe you're getting out of it. And maybe you can tell some people what the Innovation Observatory is, because not many people might not know what that is. But I'll bring you in after the other two
Right.
guys.
Okay.
Yeah. So Julie.
I think in terms of training, you can do a lot of training yourself at the beginning and carrying on all the way through. The NIHR is a really good website for having training modules about PPI on there. There are a lot of webinars that are very useful for you to find out more about your particular area you're interested in, and they're mounted by these big organizations. And if you get on their newsletters, you'll find out what's available, and they're usually free, and you can turn up and learn a lot that way. And things like FutureLearn are really good as well. I did quite a few courses on cancer, the sort of scientific courses on FutureLearn, because my degree was in physiology and biochemistry. I was interested in it, and I sort of brought it up to date because that was nearly 50 years ago. So I've sort of, got really interested in finding out what the position is now. So you can do lots of training, you can sort of educate yourself, and that also helps you when you come to be making a contribution in a group, if you just know a bit more. Yeah.
Okay. No, thank you, Julie. And I can see there's a couple of comments coming in about honorarium payments and how that can have an impact on benefits or anything along those lines. Yeah, so we did have quite a bit of a discussion on this on the last session. And I think one of the things I said I'd do is, if people wanted these sessions to continue, is would look at getting someone who can sort of help us decode some of these things around your tax office and tax credits and benefits and how all of this works, because I know it is different. I don't think there is a general consensus across all of England about how that should work, but it definitely deserves its own space and its own topic. But definitely a key issue is how it's going to impact on people. I know the second thing about payments as well is sometimes it's the amount of time that it takes to get the money, and it does vary depending on organization. So some places are really quick, you can do it online, other places still insist on paper. Other places, I think there was someone last month who said, they waited almost 8 months just to get a single payment. And that's not unusual as well in our particular instance. I know we've had one person who waited almost half a year, just to get £40 payment, which is absolutely ridiculous. But some of these things aren't in our control because we don't manage the finance process. But I think it's also about people understanding that you are going to run into what I call these challenges. They may not seem like challenges, but they are significant ones. So yeah, we'll definitely talk about the payment bit in a bit more detail. But as a PPI contributor, the good practice is you should be reimbursed for your time and for the expertise that you've provided. So it's not an incentive. It's basically, you are going to contribute something that's going to help somebody. And that's one way of saying thank you. So basically as a PPI contributor, that's what you are, well, I should say you should be entitled to get, because there are some places where if they don't have the money, then you're doing it for free. But you need to understand that you're doing it for free. Not everyone's got the funds to be able to do that. CJ, I think you had your hand up before, and then I'll come to you, Manoj. Are you having issues? If you're having issues with your sound, CJ, we can come back to you later. Manoj, go ahead.
Yes, so I would say in terms of motivation, why people become top contributors, it's an opportunity to make new friends, you develop lots of contacts, you share experiences with other people, it gives you a break from your everyday, day-to-day life. You also develop lots of other skills, and as you mentioned, and as one of our colleagues mentioned, there's opportunities to get involved in training, education, develop academic skills, and it could lead to a career as a peer researcher or a applicant on a grant application. So depending on how much time you have and how committed you are, it can lead to other opportunities.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think there's some people that are interested in the educational aspect of it, and that ties in with Julie's point about the training courses. And I know one of the ideas that's been sort of mooted to us is, having some sort of qualification or acknowledgement of your PPI input to say you have generated X amount of hours, and linking that to some sort of academic sort of measure. But that's something that's still in discussion with other PPI groups. But then I think that's more to acknowledge those people that want to have an equivalent of an academic qualification, for those people who are motivated by that. So Roland, I'll come to you. If you can tell us a bit about the Innovation Observatory and basically what's exciting about it, what you're getting out of it.
Well, I have to start by saying I'm not an expert in the Innovation Observatory because I joined it relatively recently. But my understanding is, and one of the phrases which I found particularly scary is one that they use, which is health innovation futures scanning. One of the things I have discovered certainly in medical research is the use of long phrases and acronyms. And what I say to everybody who comes to any one of these sessions is, if you don't know what the acronym is, just put your hand up and ask, because sometimes they're not as obvious as they may be. But as I understand it, the purpose of the Innovation Observatory really is to do some future looking into the future and seeing what sorts of research and technology might be a good idea to focus on, both in terms of medical devices and also the other phrase which they use is horizon scanning. So they advise what is it? The National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, which is NICE, and also the Accelerated Access Collaborative. I'm not quite sure what that is, but essentially they're both government departments that provide research into medical health care. So as I understand it, the role of the observatory is just to have a look down the line and see what's coming up and what might be a good idea to do a bit more research into, using guidelines in terms of reference which are produced by the two bodies that they report to. And of course, as with anything else, when you're looking into the future, there are a whole range of things that potentially are coming down the pipeline, some of which we've not even thought about yet. And it's absolutely fascinating, as I said, to get involved almost at ground level on some of these things and saying, well, here is well, one of the discussions that I had a meeting with the people locally yesterday, and one of the questions that I asked them is, do you start with a problem and find a solution to it? Or in some cases, do you start with a solution and find a problem that it might be useful for? So quite often you'll find people have taken existing technology and said, this may have an application in the medical arena. And sometimes people will come along and say, I have a particular issue with caring or a disease or whatever it is, and I want to know whether there's been any research done into it. So my understanding is that the role of the Innovation Observatory is to look at both of those things and see what areas of research could be better focused on, what areas could be focused on that aren't being focused on, and then advise the two bodies and say, yeah, these are the areas which perhaps we should be looking at in the future. And that, of course, that draws on a whole range of stakeholders, from the public to researchers to providers of healthcare and all the rest of it. So it's really quite interesting stuff. And if you get the chance to get involved in it, bit of blue sky thinking of what we might be doing in the future. And I was saying to somebody just today, if you want to look at some of the areas that have changed, just cast your mind back even 20 years and look now at some of the advances in technology that we'd never even thought about 20 years ago. So not necessarily in terms of medical, but the discussion I was having was all about whether we ditch cassettes for CDs, and now we've ditched both of them for streaming. So but at the same time we're going back to vinyl. So some of the old ways still work. Some of the new ways are overtaken by new technology, and it's a constantly evolving circle.
Yeah, no, it's good to hear. Well, you seem to have a very good understanding of it.
Well, yeah, I think it's once you get into the detail that some of these things are a little bit more complicated. But I mean, the principles are sound.
Yeah. No, so no, thank you for that, Roland. And Becky's put the link in for anyone who might be interested in the Innovation Observatory. But I think the point that you raised there is, whether, do you find the problem, then the solution, or the solution before the problem? And in medical technology, what tends to happen is most of the time we get the solution comes and then they're trying to fit it to problems. And the role of organizations like mine is to try and see, well, actually, is there a problem? But more importantly, what we're trying to do is get all these companies and startups to come to us and understand the problems first. And then we can see what technologies can actually apply, because trying to fit a solution to a problem actually takes longer. And that's what tends to cause a lot of the heartache for some of these companies. So Philip.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back, if you like, and then I'll come back to you again, Roland. Was the question of certificates for achievements and so forth. I actually have a folder full of certificates from various universities, has attended this particular course or that course or whatever. I've even got CPD points for surgeons and so forth, because I attended as a PPI member at various conferences. So they are available, and just ask the organizers, could you have a certificate that you attended? Go back to Roland's points. Technology does increase. And as I mentioned right in my introduction, I trained as a nurse back in '63, and then we didn't have plastics. Plastics were pretty much unknown.
Hello everyone, can you hear me? It's Hamid Khan here. Can everybody hear me? Because I've had problems dropping in and dropping out.
No.
Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you perfectly. If you just, thank you. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so going back, we didn't have plastics. So if you wanted to give an IV, for example, it was a glass bottle and a sort of orangey red rubber tube that you used. Syringes are all glass and metal and so forth. So plastics to me has been one of the great innovators in terms of medicine. I mean, the only thing now you see of metal is the actual needle in hospital these days. The rest of it's all plastic. But anyway, it is important. Technology will continue moving, and I have no idea where it's going to go. We've had some peculiar things, for example, like magnetically controlled scopes and things. So it's very difficult to know where we're actually going to go. But anyway, good to see that when I had my new knee a few weeks ago, they still use the old pressure bandage that I used to train on, and that was really comfortable, and I was really good at it all those years ago.
Thanks, Philip. And I think on the topic of the syringes moving from glass to plastic, plastic has enabled, or that type of material has enabled a lot. But the new question that's coming up now is that of the sustainability and recycling and how we move forward with that. I mean, it's starting to, I think now the NHS and Department of Health is asking all NHR units particularly to start looking at sustainability and the green agenda, so to speak. So if once again, if sustainability and carbon neutralness and green energy, if that kind of thing is very interesting to you, there also is a space for PPI involvement within that particular area. People are actually looking for just a fresh pair of eyes to look at it differently, because we all know the consequences of plastic. Sometimes, particularly in surgery, there's a lot of what they call single-use devices. So you only use it once and you throw it away, basically. Mainly because when they moved over to single-use, it just meant they didn't need all the decontamination units, or they centralized them, and it just made it harder to recycle them and do stuff. But obviously now we're looking at that again. So if sustainability is a key interest, then yeah, I would probably say definitely look out for opportunities coming that way. I know certainly within our particular cooperative, we are starting to look at sustainability, and we will have a few sustainability projects actually coming up. We're working with a few companies as well on that. So Kathy, I know you've put you're interested in that. We'll let you know when opportunities arise. We'll definitely keep you on our list for that. But huge opportunities coming up for sustainability. Yeah, and Becky's put the SBRI healthcare funding panels also looking at recycling and carbon impact. Yeah, so it's definitely a big area. So when you're looking at PPI opportunities, don't restrict yourself to just thinking they're only interested in the medical physiological bit of it. There's other things on the outskirts, you know, they could be, if you're a money person, then there's opportunities for funding and making sure things are costed properly. You know, if you're into sort of the communications and media, there's things around case studies. You know, if you want to help develop case studies and make sure that they're meaningful for patients, there's that opportunity as well. So if you're not sure, I would say definitely ask, you know, because sometimes we don't think of these things. Yes, Philip?
I just wanted to add on that when we look at sustainability and carbon footprint and so forth, whenever I'm reviewing an application for funding, I will look and say, do you really need to see this patient 5 times? They've got to travel some way from home to the hospital, and each time they're burning up a very precious carbon sort of footprint. For example, for me to get to hospital is 22 miles and back is another 22 miles. That's 44 miles round trip. So it is worth thinking as a person, you know, and I do think of the environment, which is why I don't get my hair cut. Using the electric and so forth and the shavers. But I do think about the environment, and I do think that, you know, we have to look at these surgeons and these people running a trial don't have to see the patient so often, or they could combine several tests into one visit. You know, and that's for okay, it takes some organization, but that's for them to sort of organize. And at the end of the day, we can use less carbon by not having to travel backwards and forwards too much.
Yeah, definitely. And I think in terms of travel, we're starting to see that more in the clinical trials, because obviously clinical trials are the ones that place a requirement for patients to come onto the main hospital site. So yes, there's definitely opportunities there to reduce study visits. You know, but there's things around, so from our perspective, it's about having the right imaging technology, which just reduces the need for multiple visits or multiple imaging instances for a patient, because all these fancy machines, these MRI scans, they use such a tremendous amount of energy. People wouldn't believe how much energy they use. And just basically how they work is you're using so much resource. And, you know, if we can reduce that or minimize that, then, you know, in terms of sustainability for the NHS as a whole, that's really going to work in their favor. There's other sort of off-piste ideas like, you know, having solar panels, for instance, across most of the roofing for hospitals, because they've got a large estate. And I think there's 1 or 2 hospitals that are starting to look at that now. We did fund a project looking at drones, so using drones to transport organs for transplant, because apparently the way it works without the drones is if an organ becomes available in London, it has to go up to Newcastle. Someone's got to check it out, check that there's a potential match. If they do find a match, and that potential match is based in Plymouth, it has to be driven down again, down south and to Plymouth so that this patient can actually get it. And what these drones are also offering is actually the ability to cut out that carbon footprint, because A, it will be a whole lot quicker and you're not using fossil fuels, for instance. So CJ, I know you've put, where can you find these opportunities? If this is in relation with sustainability, at the moment, they'll be very hard to come by because it's a new emerging field in terms of research and PPI. But if you do interact with some NHR facilities, I would ask them if they're doing anything on sustainability.
Yeah, no, it wasn't specifically on that. I mean, I'm involved with the NHR. I work as a public contributor. I've been a co-applicant. I've just done reviews for the SPHR funding panel, so I'm really involved, but I haven't actually come across this area, and if I am actively involved and actively looking for opportunities and still haven't come across it, I kind of think, well, what about the people that aren't already plugged in? So it's it's kind of a communication issue as well, I think, really.
Yeah, and I think the communication things is a valid point, because sometimes it's just not always easy to find these opportunities.
For me as well, one of the things is the burden, and I use that term lightly, because every time you're applying, you are having to redo your, a sort of a CV, or having to re-go through all your experience, what you've done, etc. And it actually takes up quite a lot of time. And it's kind of how we can facilitate that to get other people involved as well, because as you say, it's almost like writing a job application. You're needing to know what to say, and again, when we've done it a few times, what to say and what to do and what to draw attention to. But if we're looking at drawing new people into an area of work, they may not know that, and it's how we facilitate that as well, I think.
Yeah, okay, no, that's a good point, and I will put it on my list of future sessions. So looking at helping people with sort of the how you apply for these opportunities and what's the best way to do it. So I've made a note of that. So thank you, CJ. And Roland, you've put in something around the language that's being used. Yes, medics and academics, not necessarily the best people for lay summaries. And I think that's where all the jargon comes in and all the acronyms come in. So yeah, this is one of the sort of probably PPI heavy areas across the board, is just looking for someone who knows nothing about that field to come in and read either a summary or a research application or a funding application or an application to the Research Ethics Committee, and actually highlighting that this doesn't make sense. I don't understand what this means. So that's a very, very common area. It's also possibly a good one to start on, because if you actually really understand nothing, then that is usually a very good sign that it's probably still very heavy in some areas. And the researchers won't get mad at you for saying that actually you don't understand a single word. That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for you to say, yeah, everything's perfect, everything's fine, go ahead. Because if they don't get the funding because the research summary wasn't lay enough, then obviously it hasn't really worked to their advantage. Yes, Roland.
Yeah, I was just going to say that to give you an example, earlier this week, I was looking at a thing which had been provided actually by the manufacturer of the product, but it was all about taking saliva samples. And it read like a technical manual, when all they really wanted to say was, take the swab, put it in your mouth and spit it back into the receptacle. And it went to an entire page explaining how to hold it and what angle to deposit it into your mouth and all this sort of stuff. And it's that sort of thing where you look at it and say, well, you could write that in a sentence that everybody would understand. But sometimes people just, it's not that they get carried away, it's just that's the everyday language that they use in the industry that they're in. Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes we have some applications that are just so technical that it takes days just to decode exactly what someone's trying to do. And all you really want to understand is, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? How and when? And that's the sort of message we're trying to get out to researchers, is just, if you can't explain it, I think there's something about, if you can't explain it to a 7 or 8 year old,
then how is anybody else? How do we expect you to understand what it is you're doing if you can't explain it to a 7-year-old? So that's sort of the analogy we try and use as well for them. Yeah, and Becky's put in, yeah, she's a research scientist, so she does switch between technical and plain English, but it does take a lot of work. Yes, Manoj.
Yes, so in terms of opportunities, the phrase repeat business comes to mind. So once you're part of an organization, whatever group or forum or committee you sit on, and you've developed a good reputation for yourself, there'll be other opportunities that will come your way as part of being part of that organization. And you will have like first refusal. So you can say, yes, I'm interested. No, I'm not interested, before it gets, before they make the general public aware. Or say if you're involved as a service user carer representative at a particular university, and the PPI lead knows that you've got experience at reviewing grant applications, she or he may drop you an email saying, there's this opportunity, are you interested? And then you say yay or nay. So that repeat business also works.
Yeah, and I think also with that repeat business, it's about managing the workload, isn't it, Manoj? Yeah. Oh, sorry, he's gone on mute now. Yes, CJ. You're on mute, CJ, if you're speaking.
I am on mute. What was I going to say? I was going to say that I think it's really interesting, this. I mean, I do work for the NIHR, and I do repeat work, etc. But I think there's then a danger of actually you become a bit of an expert at being a public contributor, which is good, because I think that, you know, certainly the people here are experienced public contributors, and what we can bring to that is something that is extremely valuable. But I think it also raises a question about, do we almost lose sight because we're developing too much knowledge? You know, and are there, how do you get newer people in as well? And is there some sort of mentoring that could be done? And, you know, you start at a lower level of involvement and you build up your confidence. But for example, you know, if you're doing board applications, etc., it's really quite onerous. I've just gone through 19 applications and there were, on average, 80 pages each. That is a lot of paperwork to get through, and it's a lot of forms to go through. And, you know, is there a way that we can make that kind of thing accessible as well? Because it can be really onerous, you know, and if you're looking at inclusion on, you know, things like digital inclusion and what devices people have got to do them on and that kind of stuff, you know, are we making things as accessible as possible, really?
Yeah, thank you for that contribution. I mean, I'll pick up on a few things. I think, yes, yeah, I do. That's always been a main concern with just general PPI, is how do you get new people in? Because obviously the more you do, the more experienced you get. And I think the more experienced PPI members, to me, that's good, because it means we're starting to get PPI on the same footing as the academics and the clinicians, whereas historically it's always been about, no, let's just bring in really lay people who probably won't feel that comfortable to start off with. So they probably need to build that track record. There's always space for new members to come in, and we always want people who know nothing about the area, who are new to it, because I think it's about having a revolving door of opportunities as well. You know, so, you know, some people, as I think a few people noted earlier on, there's some people that are very happy to review applications, and there's some that will run a mile from a single application. And I think in terms of making it accessible, it's also about how we provide a wide range of opportunities that just aren't the standard opportunities that you tend to get. And I think that's the challenge that we have as the NIHR, is actually increasing the range of opportunities. I know there's a lot of work around digital inclusion. So, you know, obviously, how do we make sure people can access all these things online if they got the right training? But there's also people that don't want to do things online, you know, or that probably don't have the capability of doing it online. So I think it's about finding that balance between the two. But mentoring is also another good thing. So that's something that it's been a bit slow to start off, but it's something we're actively looking at is if you're a new PPI member and you just need to just vent or to ask for guidance or to ask for help, it's just having a bank of people that understand what you're going through and are able to advise you accordingly. So yes, I've made sort of points on the suggestions that are coming in. And before I come to you, Hamid, Kathy's just put in, she's been struck by the wide range of opportunities, whatever level of experience. And I think it's about making these places where these opportunities are advertised. I think it's about us finding a better way of communicating those and getting them out to people. So, because I think at the moment, the opportunities tend to be really streamlined to a few key organizations, and then that's it. Hamid? You're on mute, Hamid, if you wanted to speak. Yeah, that's fine. So Becky's put in newsletters, so signing up to newsletters. Yeah, newsletters tend to provide lots of wonderful opportunities as well. I know it does create, if you don't like a lot of emails in your inbox, then you obviously have to deal with that, because sometimes you can get a lot of newsletters. But for instance, we've got a mailing list for different things. It might be events, it might be funding, but
hello, hi, can you all hear me?
Sorry,
I was trying to
yeah, we
sorry,
can.
I was trying to unmute. Thank you. I was trying to unmute myself, and because my Wi-Fi was keep dropping out, I don't want to risk it by
Yeah,
losing
okay,
that
go on.
lower. But I want to just quickly say that NIHR now is known as NIHCR, and we should start thinking about how can we also focus on more of the care side rather than the health side, because that is going to be a big part of it. And also social work research, social care research has always been poorly funded compared to health research, and that's being picked up now. And we will start seeing more even social care research being funded in the future, more, and also integrated between health and social care research, which will not be just health or just social care. So I just wanted to bring that also to the table and mention that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ahmed. Yes, so worth noting, yeah, definitely. So the social care has been included in the NIHR now. I know the logo still stays NIHR, but yes, it's National Institute for Health and Care Research, which looks at the social care. No worries, Kathy, thank you. Yeah, so I think most of the funding, the new funding applications now that the NIHR is rolling out, is they are expecting people to address the social care aspect of it. So we're going to see more and more of that coming through. So I think in terms of PPI, I'm not sure where that stands. I'm not sure whether we're looking at developing PPI further or whether we can actually learn from PPI in the social care environment. But that's definitely something that's coming to the forefront. I know certainly for the next version of the MedTech and in vitro diagnostics cooperatives, social care is going to be a huge element of that. And they are expecting us to look at how we can engage with the community, the wider community, not just engaging with hospitals and the usual suspects, is how can we extend all of this to social care. And Becky, yes, so that, yeah, it still stays as NIHR, but when you have to break it down, it's actually got an extra word or two now, just to make things more confusing. But I think they've just decided to keep it as NIHR, but the full, when you break down the acronym, it's got care in it, care research in it, and that is the social care aspect, yeah. Okay, any other comments or any other suggestions for topics? I mean, how, for those that have attended these regularly, how have you found them? Is it something we should continue? Are there things we should change? Interested in getting some feedback on that? So, okay, thanks, Mo, that's fine. Yeah, Roland's good, they probably don't want to change the website. Yeah, fair point. It takes a lot to rebrand. And Mo, you thought, could we look into heart, lungs research? That's an important point, Mo, actually, because I think for heart, there are bits that look after heart, but I think for the lung side of things, it's actually not that prominent. What I can certainly do for you, Mo, is I will send you some links. Well, when I send out the email, actually, I'll send out the links to the heart and the units that do heart and lung research. And then you can just have a look and see if it's something that they do address, if they're doing topics that you're interested in. But I know heart definitely. Lung, I'm not too sure of. Yes, Rashmi?
I think you asked the question about, what do we think about these sessions and do we continue with these sessions? So I was just reflecting on all the conversation. It's been really helpful to have this conversation. But I think the original plan, when we first decided it would be really good to have this session, was to see how can we attract new members? How can we reach out to communities, to new people who traditionally may not be getting involved in the PPI world, and be there to just have an open coffee session so that we can talk to them the value of PPI and how contributions can be made. What I have noticed, and I might be wrong because I haven't attended all the sessions, I've attended few, I've seen the same people attend. So we're not getting the new blood, which we originally intended to. If we are not getting the new blood, then perhaps we don't have to have them as frequently as we originally set up on a monthly basis. Maybe a quarterly basis will be enough. However, I think it would be really useful to know some statistical data, because you will probably have access to that, we don't, of who has attended. And did we actually achieve our first objective, which was to encourage new blood to come, the new members to join this session? If the answer to that question is yes, we've got, it might only be 2 or 3 or 4 people, but I think even getting 2 or 3 or 4 new people join, I think that's a big success, because we have to take little steps to the big end game. But if we haven't got 2, 3, 4 people join, then I think we probably need to make it less frequent. That'll be my guidance. I mean, I'm happy to continue attending this on a regular monthly basis, but only if it's going to be helpful. If it's not, then I don't see the value.
Yeah, sure. So I think in terms of, yes, we have had some people sign up to our PPI mailing list. So we've had a few new people sign up. I wouldn't be able to tell you how many. Off the top of my head, I can say at least 5 people. It could be more, but definitely people have signed up to our mailing list as a direct result of this. Yes, the original aim was to attract new members, potentially to sort of join the work that we are doing. But I also have, personally, I've found that people are also finding them useful just to find out more information about how certain things work or what other people's experiences have been. So I know in one of the sessions, I think Manoj delivered a session actually on funding applications, because that's what was requested by a couple of the members there. So that was an unexpected sort of positive result. Is actually, this is a gap that we feel we need to understand what's going on. Could you deliver that for us? So there's potential opportunities there in terms of what it could be used for. I also think that maybe if there's, if we say we deliver a few training sessions, maybe once every 2 months, that might actually attract more new members, because they're actually going to be learning something. And it might be something a bit more targeted to what it is they want. But so far, that's what I've found, without obviously presenting any written evidence, but seeing the stuff come through the back end. That's what I've been seeing. Philip?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Rashmi, actually, what is useful? What do you consider? You said you're happy to continue if it's useful. I mean, what do you think is useful? It's useful to me because I'm getting to hear lots of different points of view. And those points of view are very useful when you come to reviewing things. You think to yourself, well, I think this, but hang on a minute, Rashmi or Julie or thought of it a different way. And I think that's really very useful. In getting new people to join, I think is also useful if we can. But at the end of the day, I think these meetings are very useful. And the only chance that we actually get, if you like, to get things off our chest and at the same time pass on to people things that we've done that they may not have done, and that they may learn from that, and vice versa.
Yeah, and thanks, Philip. And Becky's also put, I think, useful in is giving people the opportunity to learn about PPI from people who have diverse experience in it. I mean, any other views? Don't be scared, open discussion, no judgment. Yes, Manoj?
Based on everything I've heard, I think we could do with a session on how to become aware of opportunities to get involved in health research. So, like I said, regional first, local and regional, and then national. Because unless people are aware of where these opportunities exist and how to get involved, then they're potentially missing out on opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Becky's also added, you know, it's also the opportunity to answer people's questions. Yeah, so we do get some questions, particularly from the real novices. So it's been very useful for them. I think when we spoke about the funding and the payments, we did get a lot of questions generated about the payments and how it can actually be off-putting for some people, because sometimes people don't necessarily understand how the organizations work and what's actually tying their hands as well. So having an understanding of that has been useful for some. Yes, Philip?
Yeah, so sorry to come back again and not hog this, but I forgot to ask this question last time. You did mention the possibility of having a little training session within our meetings. And one thing I would like a little bit of training on is gender. I am getting totally confused about a transvestite, whatever, you know, and so forth and so on. And it's in all the news, and they're coming up with all these terminologies now, which I'm getting lost on. And you know, even universities now, a lot of the emails I'm getting have got she, her, him, whatever, etc. as pronouns. So I would like, if you've got somebody that can come and explain to us exactly what all this terminology is, because it is, poor old grey-haired man is getting quite confused about who's who and what's what.
Yeah, no, that's a valid point, actually. We did get, there's someone at the University of Leeds who did give us training on that. I will see if they're still around or if they're able to provide us with that. I'll see if, I can't remember whether they gave us any slide decks or anything, but I know the University of Leeds definitely did provide training for staff on gender.
Is it linked in with EDI training?
No, that wasn't linked in with EDI training. I actually can't even remember how it came. It just seemed to be, well, people have asked about sort of gender identity, how do we do it? But this was before EDI started really blowing up. This was probably, I think, 2019 when we got this training. So that was before EDI was starting to become prominent, but they did do some training for staff on it.
I came across something earlier this week, which was an additional Q at the end of LBGQT with another Q, which was questioning, which I hadn't come across before, which I don't know whether anyone else has come across that, but yeah, you know, it's forever evolving, isn't it? But that was one that I hadn't actually come across before. So it is, you know, it is evolving, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I think it is. And I mean, I get confused. I think I can understand some of the basic ones, but then, you know, it ends up becoming sort of multiple words to describe somebody's gender. Then I honestly don't know what it is and how I should refer to individuals that identify that way. So it's something we can definitely look at getting someone to explain that to us and provide some training. So leave that with me. I'll talk to someone at the university, and then, yeah, we can put it up as one of the sessions will be basically training on gender identity. Yes, Philip?
Yes, me again. I resigned from a group down at Swansea University simply because it was a PPI unit on primary care. And there were some, I don't know, maybe 20 of us, mixture of males and females, is that correct? And two of the females went to a conference and they were reporting back. And I thanked the girls for their whatever interpretation. I got a snotty email from the chair saying that's terrible language to use. Girls, don't address them as girls, you know, this, that, and the other, and so forth. Now, I also belong to a group in Manchester where the chair is actually a trainer with the BBC. And I said to her, I said, what would you train report to the BBC? And she said, no, girls is fine. Girls is acceptable. So why do we have this mishmash of in PPI certain terms are not acceptable, but the BBC says they are acceptable? And I don't know. And sometimes I stutter because I think 3 times about the words I'm going to use. And as I said, addressing the audience here, you know, it's like I would, if I'm addressing a PPI conference or something, I would also start off by saying, does anybody mind being called a guy, like you guys out here, etc.? And if anybody puts their hand up, well, fair enough. But if they don't, then I will refer to them as guys. Otherwise, you can get totally tongue twisted in terminologies that you need to or want to use. So I'm not going to say any more just in case I embarrass myself or I use the wrong words or something like that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll definitely look at getting people who are more knowledgeable and who will be able to answer those questions better than I can, because I also probably could do with some education in that as well. So leave that with me, and then we'll try and get some sort of blue sky behind what's acceptable and what isn't. Becky's also put in as a neurodiverse person, because I understand male and female and LBQT. She has no problems with any of it, but sometimes she says the wrong thing and she accidentally puts a foot in it. So it's just yeah, I think it's just that awareness, and just, you know, I don't think it's for some people it just takes longer because we have been ingrained for a very, very long time that it's only he and she. But the world around us is demanding more specificity. So we do need to actually learn a bit more about that. So I will look into the training for that.
But I also think, if I may, V, just to carry on with this, we have to bear in mind the background of some PPI members. There is nothing wrong with people from a building site or the dustbin men or whoever, dustbin person, or whoever sitting on PPI panels. Their language usage will be totally different, and in lots of cases, totally unacceptable to us middle-class people, if you like. So we have to be not only understand what the correct terminology is, but understanding and forgiving of other people within a group that will not have those, if you like, niceties of the English language.
Yeah, no, I think there's something about communication. So we'll definitely look at that. So yeah, definitely good ideas for training. Yes, Manoj?
We could possibly do with a session on the different organizations that sit within the wider umbrella term of the NHS. So the Research Design Service, the National Institute of Health and Care Research, the Health Research Authority, and then the regulatory bodies like NICE and the Medicines and Healthcare Regulatory Agency. So to newcomers, it would be helpful to explain what the remit of these organizations are and what they do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. There'll be plenty of content for that. Yeah, so we can definitely do that. So I'm just making the notes of that. Hamid?
Thank you. Also, remember at one point we were talking about setting up a quality and diversity type of event or a conference, or looking into that, because that'd be really important to look into.
Yeah,
I think
no.
it's nicer. I think it's nicer we come to these sessions. I think next part of the program should be us helping you to design some sessions
Yeah.
us helping you to facilitate some sessions. So it's almost like we're leading with your facilitation and support. And I would love to put a session together and then come and run it online. I would also hope that this year we will get a chance to do at least one face-to-face conference and get other people to know about all the good stuff that we're doing. At the moment, we know what we're doing, but nobody else knows. It'd be a nice way to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. Yes, and yeah, that is still on my to-do list, and I am getting there slowly. But yes, yeah, I think having an event led by PPI that is supported by the NHR, that will probably get more of the new members and new people interested in that rather than ourselves. Yep, so that's perfectly fine. I've made a note of that. And I know Becky put supporting people who need alternative technology, such as screen readers and captions would be useful, definitely. So made a note of that. Thank you very much. Yeah, any other comments, suggestions before I let you have your evening back? Well, what's left
Thank
of
you so much. Thank you for that. So you were breaking up a little bit, but I got the gist of what you were saying. Thank you. And I think I like the fact that you said that it's on your to-do list for this year. So that's nice. That we got some kind of a vision for doing it this year at some point. Thank you.
Yeah, no, definitely. So yeah, so there won't be one for March because we'd only organize them up until February, but I will look at getting some dates in from April to March next year. And then obviously if anyone wants to volunteer to run any of these sessions, then please let me know. And then I can put you down to actually sort of chair these sessions and run them so that you hear less of me and then we start to deliver more of the content. I mean, I'll still turn up, but I'll hang out in the background and make sure the technology is working. But if anyone's got a burning need to run a particular session, then you are more than welcome to suggest that. And yes, Becky, quite happy to have you hang around in the chat. I still check it, so I know you're there. Yeah, but in the meantime, I'd like to thank you all. Thank you all for your input. And for your suggestions. Next month will be pretty quiet, so if it feels like you're missing something, it's not your fault. And I will hopefully see most of you back in April with some new faces, hopefully, for April as well. But for now, thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vee. Thank you.
All right, take care.